Okay, that's really helpful. The other question that I had, your dynamic is so different than what we've seen in like
Yeah,
traditional relationships, yet it still works and you guys kill it.
yeah.
So what's that dynamic like, and how is it different, and why do you feel like you guys thrive?
We set out to solve a different problem with our relationship. And so I think that the premise that most people come into the relationship with is different than how Layla and I approach the relationship. And I think that's where I think fundamentally, like, like when you're solving a business problem, I'm sure you've probably asked this, it's like, what problem are we solving, right? It's like the first question you ask is like, what problem are we solving? And so most people don't even A, ask that, but B, if they do ask that, they're usually trying to solve a different thing. They're like, I want to have lots of romance and this big Hollywood love, which from everything that I know, is something that is short-lived and then disappears, and then you are left with someone that you were looking at and you're like, well, shit, what do we have in common, right? And so Layla and I had both rode that roller coaster multiple times before, and we both were at a point where we're like, you know what? And mind you, I was very, dejected at the time when I met her. I was like, listen, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm trying to build this. This is what I'm doing. And the first 30 dates we had were 30 days in a row, where after our first date, which we went to frozen yogurt, the next date was not a date. I was like, I'm gonna be working from 9 until I go to sleep. So if you wanna work with me, you can. And so that was what we did every single day, is that I was like, I'm gonna be working. If you've got work, we can work together. And so it ended up just being somebody that I enjoyed spending a lot of time with. And the romance stuff, honestly, I feel like didn't really like kick in until like 2.5 years into our marriage. And I think that our relationship was based on that. Like respect was first. And then we learned the love part. It's very hard to learn respect. Being hot or being physically attracted to somebody, I feel like it's the ticket of entry. It's not like I see a lot of successful guys go find the Instagram model. I meet said Instagram model and I'm like, how do you live like this? Like I would kill myself if I had to talk to this person every day, right? And they're like, oh, the secret is I don't talk to them. I'm like, that sounds horrible, right? And so again, it's like they were solving a different problem. And so for me, my goal has always been number one, like where I want to go, right? And having somebody who wants to go that way with you, because I was engaged prior to Layla, right? Wonderful girl. But we ultimately ended up deciding to cut it off because we simply had different goals for our lives. She was like, I want to do this. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And it was like, well, what are you going to do? And we're like, maybe you're a great person and I'm a great person. We're just not necessarily like meant to be, and that's okay. Because I think on some level, like we say these things like non-negotiables, but then we negotiate. And so it's like either it's a non-negotiable or it is negotiable. And for me, it's like where I want to go is non-negotiable. So it's like I have these goals, which is where I want to go, my values, which is how I want to get there, and then lifestyle, which are what are my interests, right? And if I can find somebody who wants to go the same place, the same way, and likes doing the day-to-day the same way as me, then I'm good. Like the fact that Layla was into fitness was like, great, I go to the gym too. You go to the gym. Like, it's not going to be weird. You're not going to be like, oh, I don't want to, like she's in the same mindset of that, right? If I'm like, hey, I want to go invest in this workshop or something, she's not going to be like, I can't believe we're spending $10,000 on this. It's like that person who say that is not my partner. And I think in terms of me being the guy telling you what like the number one thing that attracted me about Layla was that Layla never tried to change me. If you want to do big things, then whoever is going to come along with you has to be equally big as a person. And I think a lot of people settle for a $45,000 employee. I mean, and you can even, if someone, in the reverse, if I were you and someone's like, man, I'm looking for a wife, and I'd be like, what are you looking for out of a wife? Like real talk, like not politically correct, like what are you actually looking for? And so then if they're like, man, I would love it if someone cooked and cleaned and fed me and washed my clothes and ironed and blah, 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 blah. You're like, okay, question. If I paid someone $45,000 a year to do that professionally, then what would our relationship be? Because that's an expense. You know what I mean? Like we can just write the check and like all those things are solved. So like now what? Hey Andy, what's up, man?
What is up, Mr. Alex Hormozi? Okay, so question I have for you. I've heard you talk a lot about investing in the S&P ME instead of the S&P index, like the ME 500, right? What would you say with those skill acquisitions? Like which skills and in what order would you suggest maybe a person to go through? Because that kind of ties into your skill stacking. Is there a methodical way that you think this naturally ascends to the next one?
I would think about it from the order of how you would actually make money. So it's like, well, I have to have something to sell, right? So you have to have some sort of base skill that you could sell if you're going to get into services, or have some sort of base product, right? Once you know how to do that, so like if you're getting into e-commerce, you have to build a store, talk to manufacturers, make the thing that you're going to sell. Step one. On the services side, it'd be like, what's the key skill that I'm going to acquire to show people how to do it? And you can acquire that skill by like working a job, buying a certification, going through a course, going to a workshop. Like I learned how to run Facebook ads at a workshop. You know what I mean? It cost me $3,000. At the end of the workshop, I knew how to run Facebook ads. And that $3,000 has made me many more than $3,000 over the rest of my career. So point being, first thing, you start with the thing, right? The second thing you're to do is that you have to focus on promotion. So it's going to be advertising. And if you think about it, this is the order I did the books, right? Offers is what answers the question, what do I sell? And leads answers the question, who do I sell it to? Right? So like once you have the thing, then you got to go sell the thing and let people know about it, and you have to advertise. And so that would be the second big skill stack. The third one would be conversion, which is like kind of persuasion, so sales. And there's different ways you can do it. So like you could learn how to build, shopping pages in e-commerce that convert. You could take phone sales. You could learn how to pitch and make VSLs. All of those things. And then finally, if you want to like learn, the next piece would be leadership and operations, because then you're gonna have to hire people to help you out.
With the caliber of people you work with and the different levels that they're at, has there been anything that you would say maybe is the common one or two missing principles that most business owners are not doing? Or if it's maybe questions that they're not quite asking that you see, like sometimes if you're only gonna do like the one or two things, not that they're not all important, what are they?
Yeah, so I just did a tweet the other day, but like the difference between 1,000 and 1,000,000 is skills, right? The difference between 1,000,000 and 100 million is character. The difference between 100 million and a billion, in my opinion, we'll see if it works, is time. And so once you have the base skills, then it's really becomes about who the person is. And so as you scale up, the speed of scaling often correlates with the speed of talent recruitment. Because if you are a shitty person or a shitty boss or a bad leader or can't cast a vision or can't explain why this is going to benefit a lot of people, not just inside the business, but also outside the business, then you're not going to get the best people. And if you don't have the best people, you have to work overtime. And then you never really are able to pull yourself out of the business. And so you can measure the size and the scalability of the company by the talent that they can attract. Like there's a reason that Google and Meta and Goldman Sachs and all of these ones pull from all the Harvard, all the Ivy League schools and all that stuff. And, we make fun of those people, but they also make all of the money. And so it's because they have a brand and they have a huge pipeline of training that they train people on. And people also know that when they go to that brand, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, whatever, that they're going to be able to go and do whatever they want afterwards. And so like what happens is you realize that there's a two-sided funnel, right? So on one side, you have to learn how to attract customers. But on the other side, you have to learn how to attract talent. Because if you just only know how to attract customers, then everything always breaks and you can never get over the hump and you can never scale.
Brilliant.
Sweet, man.
Well, man, thank you for reaching back and helping all of us go forward and taking the shortcut.
How would you approach creating strategies to generate leads and cultivate enduring customer relationships in this rapidly evolving enterprise B2B landscape, right? When I say enterprise, let me clarify, I'm speaking to Fortune 500, Global 2000 type organizations.
I'll tell you two very different things. On one hand, I've got a buddy who sells only to Fortune 100. And he was telling me that one of their most profitable strategies was hiring people from the Fortune 100 in the departments that they're trying to get on board. And then they hire them and they already have all the sway, all the influence, all the know-how, and then they can bring that account with them. And then the majority of their revenue actually just comes from cross-selling all the different markets that those people are in, right? So it's like, okay, I had to start with, Google Southwest, whatever, right? And then I'm moving on to Google Mexico, or Google LATAM, or whatever, right? And so those are the two biggest areas of expansion from that perspective. In terms of the lead gen, I don't think the lead gen really changes very much. I think more or less it's just how quickly can I involve as many stakeholders as possible and make sure that my pitch is oriented to them looking good and them having no risk in terms of their job. It's like, here's my path to you getting promoted and a raise, and there's no downside. Like, it's all about them, you know what I mean? But I think part of it is like, and I'm assuming you're a leader in the company.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is really getting the commission breath out of the sales guys. And oh, this is like, I'm getting into tactics, but is, I love the term BAMFAM, right? Book a meeting from a meeting, which is that we never have anyone falling through the cracks. Like, we always know what we're doing to move the ball forward. And I think some guys get tired, or I don't want to say lazy, but like they get tired and they're like, yeah, I'm waiting for a response from that. It's like, well, when are you meeting with them? It's like, well, I'm waiting for the response. It's like, if you're not able to push the ball forward from one meeting to the next, like that, in my opinion, is a loss. Like that's like a missed sale. Even though maybe you could save it, but you can dramatically decrease the pipeline, because even setting the frame with the enterprise sale of, listen, normal enterprise sales take 12 months, 18 months, 6 months, depending on the thing that you're selling. If you explain to the prospect, you're like, listen, it actually doesn't take 12 months. It takes 48 hours. Hours of work, not time. So if we have 48 one-hour meetings to get this done, we can just take that and we can stretch it over 2 years, or we can do it in three months. It's really up to you. And I think even just setting that breaks a little bit of the like, this feels fast kind of language that a lot of like more corporate people will use. And then making sure that the bean counters who are approving budget, like, hey, I'm just being real, that their asses are covered and that they can look good.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's all good feedback, my friend. So just a quick follow-up question, then I'll let you go. Regarding lead gen specific, the companies we can compete against, you're very familiar with: McKinsey, Boston, Accenture, right? Seems like a lot of the lead gen is based on content, specifically gated content. And part of your value equation that I really like is, value on the front end, which is kind of difficult at the enterprise level. Any thoughts there moving forward? Do you see that, kind of staying the same, maintaining that?
I think that's 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same reason McKinsey, for example, puts out all those white papers, and Goldman Sachs put all their industry analysis out, right? And you opt in and you get it, and then they'll follow up with you. And I think, in my opinion, this may be an oversimplification, but I'm a simple guy. Like, I'll get the name from anywhere in the org that downloads the thing that's valuable for them. And then that's where the scripting comes in of the judo of like, hey, you got this thing. What are you getting this thing for? Well, we're working on this initiative or whatever. It's like, well, like what's, you get into sales, like what's the objective? What are you guys trying to do? Cool. Well, who else is involved? And then you start moving your way through the org. So I want to pull the thread from wherever I can. Get the thread and then just start pulling my way.
No, that's great stuff, man. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the new release on Saturday, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate your time.